Greetings, all. What a wonderful conversation about professional boundaries. Let me start this reflection with a quote from one of the articles. I've come to believe that if we are controlled and intentional about when, why, and how we use self-disclosure and limited client-initiated touch, and if we closely monitor our inner states to ensure that our motivation is focused on the well-being of our clients, these can strengthen the relationship. I couldn't agree with this more. And what it boils down to is that our primary responsibility as professional helpers is to be self-aware and mindful. If we do that, we are in a much better position to be useful to people than we would if, for example, we just arbitrarily followed rules or procedures. Because as we know, every client is different, and our approach to each client has to be dictated by their own individual needs and tailored to them in particular. And the only way to deliver effective service then is to know ourselves very well and to be mindful in what we do in the context of our relationship with our clients. As Reamer pointed out, handled skillfully, judicious self-disclosure can enhance clients' sense of reciprocity in the clinical relationship and strengthen the therapeutic alliance, facilitate client trust, contribute to a more collaborative worker-client relationship, provide the client with a powerful role model, demonstrate the universality of human frailty, and normalize the client's challenges, making them feel less isolated and overwhelmed. And in my own practice, I've found all of these things to be true. And there's also a cultural component, which is that in some cultural context, if you do not present as an authentic human being and do that by sharing something of yourself, then you actually never get traction in working with that client system. Research over the years with regard to trust has indicated that we trust one another on the basis of shared information. And so if as a professional we arbitrarily refuse to share any information, then we make ourselves less human. As the author of this article points out, self-disclosure and touch are not techniques I will ever use in anything but small doses. I still encourage new social workers to steer clear of them entirely. And I think that there is validity to that suggestion that if you're not sure and if you're not well-grounded, then err on the side of caution. However, a lot of us come to the field with a great deal of life and experience, and sometimes professional experience that is generalizable. So even that is not an arbitrary rule, in my opinion. The question is, what do empathy and kindness dictate? There is also a problem with a focus on the hazards of touch and self-disclosure without attention to the hazards of withholding them. And some of you point this out. As Ashley says, if the client had reached out, I think that a gentle pat on the back of the hand might have been appropriate. Again, as the author points out, mindfulness is central. Before doing so, I will always ask myself, why was I doing it? What are the potential risks? How might it be misunderstood? How might it help a client? And is there any chance that my ego or unconscious agenda might be at play? On the other hand, Rebecca points out that sometimes touch can be a distraction to a client. For example, as Rebecca says, I believe that if the worker took time to reach for her hand to comfort her, it may distract Sandy from feeling what she's feeling. I believe that sometimes we may offer comfort because we get uncomfortable. At times, I believe that we need to let people feel their emotions so that they can heal and not interrupt them while they're able to open up and talk. And this is a very important point as well. Amber suggests that asking should always come first. And Tasha makes this point as well. However, as Amber points out, even the asking part can be considered to be crossing boundaries. You really need to know that if you open that door by asking, there's no going back. And certainly, we need to be mindful and careful of any nonverbal cues, especially touch. Melissa points to the importance of understanding the context. You must know the client well. And Amber, in describing her experience in working in a school, says, I gave hugs to every kid who asked for one all day. Lots and lots of hugs. Of course, I needed to consider how my experience is different from his. What with me being a well-known mom who has been part of many of those kids' lives from the time they were in diapers, the kids trust me because they have learned that I'm safe from years of experience. A different adult in my position may not have those years of opportunities to earn them that trust. And that's a wonderful example of the importance of understanding the context. As Angie points out, it's about knowing your clients and understanding what works for them. And as Samantha points out, my volunteer placement is at a mental health resource center, and my supervisor did mention that we can interact with people that come through the door on a more personal level by sharing our own experience, only because it creates a normalcy around the concept of therapy and recovery. As Nice points out, it's also important to know the meanings of touch in cultural contexts. As social workers, our clients can only connect with us if they relate to us. If we avoid questions and don't answer questions, how can we build a connection with our clients? If anything, we will distance ourselves from our clients, causing distrust and complications. And as Amber points out, since I know very little about Sandy, aside from that she has lost her daughter, I have to focus on her very unique life experience. I think that all these situations, Angie points out, are hypothetical. But I believe that when we're actually put in the situation, we would be surprised at how we really react. We say one thing, but we really don't know for sure until we pass through that situation. As Susanna points out, as social workers, our clients can only connect with us if they relate to us. And then another view Tanya offers, as a person who doesn't like being touched, holding a girl, so another perspective is that as a person you might not like being touched. And it's important to understand if a client feels that way. For example, I personally don't like being hugged when I'm upset because it makes me feel awkward. However, if I see anyone else cry, I feel compelled to hug them and just hold them until the emotions pass. So you see how complex these issues are, and how ethical dilemmas are not called dilemmas for nothing. Our best bet is to be respectful, to keep clients' best interests in the forefront of our minds, and to commit ourselves to being mindful of our own behavior and whatever it is that we bring to the interaction. This was a most marvelous discussion, and once again, I feel honored to be observing a conversation among people who have a great deal of collective wisdom.